Welcome to the Pharmacist's Voice Podcast, episode 334. I am your host, Ohio pharmacist Kim Newlove. It's Father's Day weekend here in the United States as I publish this on Friday, the 13th of June in 2025. My guest today is Dr. Cory Jenks, co-host of the Diabetes Remission Roadmap Podcast. Cory is a father of three, and so is his co-host, Dr. Brian Bisher. Happy Father's Day to Cory, Brian, and all of the dads listening to this episode today. Today's episode is part 12 in my Pharmacist Podcasters Series. In this series, my guests and I talk about podcasting to inspire you to start your own podcast, be a podcast guest, or use your voice in general. If you are interested in podcasting, podguesting, or public speaking, you need to listen to this episode. The show notes for this episode, by the way, are on thepharmacistvoice.com. That's pharmacists with an S, thepharmacistvoice.com. Just click the podcast tab and find episode 334. In the show notes, you will find links to Cory and Brian on LinkedIn, a link to their podcast, of course, the Diabetes Remission Roadmap Podcast on Spotify, Facebook and Instagram links for the podcast, and more. Lots of links today, as always. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. Without further ado, here's my conversation with Dr. Cory Jenks. Hi, Cory. Welcome back to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast.
It's an honor to be a repeat guest. Thank you for having me back.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I think this is your third time on the show.
I am embarrassed to say I've lost count. As they say, right. You lose count when you're having fun. I think that's the saying, right? It's not time flies when you're having fun. You lose count when you're having such a good time. So I feel like one of those SNL hosts that are nearing the 5-timers club. So maybe I'll get a special suit jacket and a couple more.
I will have to think about what the equivalent for my podcast will be. It should be something. I should get you something. Oh, 5 times. That would be awesome. I've had somebody on 4 times already and just not 5.
Okay. Well, the gift is sharing time with you. So I appreciate you sharing your wonderful platform. So here we are.
It's my pleasure. We're going to talk about your new podcast. I know that you co-host the Diabetes Remission Roadmap Podcast with Dr. Brian Bisher. So you are in your role as Dr. Cory Jenks in that podcast. Tell me, what is the podcast about and why did you start it?
So the podcast is about, it's sort of in the title, how if you have type 2 diabetes, how you can put this condition in remission. As a pharmacist, we're taught that type 2 diabetes is a chronic progressive disease that you have to manage through escalating amounts of medications. And Brian and I we disagree with that premise. And this really this podcast came about because he and I are passionate about helping patients. Now, I don't want to come off as someone who thinks that if you use a medicine, you're a failure. Not the case. But I think that the default approach to using medicines and escalating medicines in type 2 diabetes without giving people that roadmap to remission is a failed approach. And he and I had enough conversations on our early morning walks. And when I say early morning, he's in Ohio and I'm in Tucson. So when he's walking in the morning, I'm walking in the really early morning just to give myself a little extra cred. But we had enough of these discussions discussing how we would approach various patients, discuss our frustrations, and we were kind of realized that we should record this and actually help some people instead of just getting angry. So the beginning of it was a passion project of providing information, providing a service. And in my clinic, I can reach 16 people a day with a podcast. That ceiling is literally limitless. And so how can we leverage our time and our skills to help as many people as we can? And so this podcast was born.
I love it. You're filling a gap. You're trying to help people with their diabetes get off the medicines and choose different ways to go into remission. I like that.
And really reclaim their life. Because if you think of a life reliant upon medications, it's not a fun life. It's a life of doctor's visits and pharmacy visits. As much as you love pharmacy, it's not fun waiting for medicines at the pharmacy or dealing with insurance. And so sort of trying to give people their lives back on multiple levels too. That's the greatest return that we get when we see that with our patients.
Well, I personally have listened to, I think, every single episode. As we record this in April of 2025, there are 12 episodes, and I have been listening on my Spotify app. That is where I listen to you. And I can tell you that I have learned things. I'm a pharmacist and my intense interest is not in diabetes,
Mhm.
but I have a son who has autism and some eating disorders, and he is now pre diabetic.
Mm.
So, from you guys, I have learned a little bit more about what was it, making a bigger tank, eating less sugar. Go ahead, you tell me the 3 tips.
Yeah, so when we're trying to manage our blood sugar, 3 ways we can go about disposing of that blood sugar or reducing it. So, with the way the analogy that one analogy you can use is think of like a gas tank for your car. So you can put less in and put less sugar in your body, and it'll raise less. So I would say it's an easy one to do, but anyone who loves donuts or cake or whatever sweet thing, it's maybe not always that easy, or things that turn into sugar. So that's one. Number two is you can burn it off. So that's going to be your exercise, like cardiovascular exercise. But the third one that I think is often overlooked is building a bigger storage tank. So we store sugar as what we call glycogen, and we can store glycogen in our liver and our muscles. And our liver is only so big, but much like your audience of podcasters, the ceiling on your muscle is almost limitless. Well, okay, there's a limit. But if you are able to build a bigger storage tank, when you consume glucose or things that turn into glucose, there's more place to store it as glycogen. And so you are able to lower that sugar in that way. And we could go into the deep path of physiology of insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia, but the long and short of it, and what I tell my patients is, if you get more muscly, it's like a cheat code for when you eat sugar. And they're like, okay, great, because you could restrict the rest of your life, and some people do. Some people, that's a path that they do well on. But if you want to give yourself, we call it more metabolic flexibility, muscle's sort of like the secret cheat code for that.
I like the video game analogy because, first of all, you're a guy. And second of all, you have kids. And third of all, I think a lot of us have played video games and we know what a cheat code is. Thank
Mhm.
you for making that so relatable. And that brings me to my next point. I understand that your audience is actually people who have diabetes. You are not trying to necessarily educate pharmacists. Tell me about your audience. Who do you intend to reach?
We want to reach those people who are at the end of their rope, who've had enough of the failed system, who've had enough of being ignored by their doctor or provider or whoever that might be, who've had enough of fighting with the insurance companies over their coverage of their medicines, who've had enough of checking their sugar 5 times a day or maybe injecting insulin multiple times a day, who want a path away from it. And I don't fault the well-intentioned providers who get 7 minutes with each patient. That's not enough time to properly educate somebody about a chronic disease that is reversible. And if you're a 7-minute provider, you don't see a lot of reversal because you don't have the time to provide the resources to have your patients reverse their diabetes. And so we want to reach people who have high blood sugars or are pre-diabetic. And if there are pharmacists out there that want to learn more about diabetes treatment, like, you're going to get caught under this umbrella. Like, you're going to learn something. But I think the way that we approach the way we talk to our audience is in a way that's digestible, using video game analogies or analogies like gas tanks or storage tanks or sinks, things that are relatable to most of us. Unless you drive an electric car, then you don't have a gas tank anymore. So yeah, I've had enough patients that have been fed up, or you tell them, you're on insulin, you know this makes you gain weight? And they're like, no, like, you've been on this for 20 years and no one told you that this makes you gain weight. And they say, well, all I've been told is to lose weight. I'm like, yeah, it's like running in quicksand. It's literally a cruel joke that we play on people. So if people who have diabetes who want a fresh perspective and possibly a new lease on life, I think you're going to really love this podcast.
Cory, thank you for talking about your audience. One of the things that I've heard you and Brian talk about is your actual patients and some of the success stories that they've had. For me, I love hearing that. What kind of comments are you getting from your audience about what they're hearing on your podcast?
I think we're still in our infancy, so the amount of feedback we get might not be as robust as we'd hope. But we have gotten some listener questions that Brian addressed in episode 11, which has been great. I think the biggest thing that I love is when we get things that need clarification. So that's my favorite sort of question is, I don't understand this, or make me understand this complicated thing. Because we can give general guidance and talk about pathophysiology, medications, diet approaches, but there's several billion human beings in the world, and to say that there's a one-size-fits-all solution for every person is not correct. And I think as pharmacists, we often get caught in the guidelines. We want to use evidence-based medicine, and that's good. But a big piece of evidence-based medicine is applying that evidence individually to that individual patient. And I think we sometimes forget about that. And so hearing specific challenges or questions, probably my favorite thing, because if they have a question or if this individual has a question about this thing, it's just like pharmacy school, someone else probably is thinking of that question too.
Right. No dumb questions, right?
Really, no. And I think it's actually disheartening to hear some very basic questions that we get from patients who've had the disease for years, which means that their education on it has been, it's failed, is one F word to use about how they've been educated on their own disease. So getting that opportunity to fill the gaps, as you had mentioned earlier, is probably one of my favorite things to do.
Right. Going back to the format of the podcast, you guys started it off as a co-hosted podcast. You and Brian Bisher co-hosting same episodes. But lately, I've noticed you guys have done some solo episodes. What can we expect in the future?
Both. I think that we want to get content out to our listeners. And the truth is, he and I are both fathers of three with kids. They're all 7 and under in both of our houses. He's a full-time pharmacist. I am blessed to work part-time, and it's hard to align schedules sometimes to have a quiet house to record. But we don't want that to be a barrier to our audience. And so the last couple episodes, we went ahead and recorded solo podcasts because we each had a topic burning in our minds. I had a particular patient case that was really interesting. He had a listener question he wanted to address, and instead of waiting until none of our kids were sick and had baseball games and weren't working, we wanted to get that information out. So you can expect probably more solo pods in the future, but there's no rift between us. There's no big beef. It's just a scheduling thing. In case people were, I want to quell the rumors right now. There's no beef between Brian and me. I really like co-hosting with him. I'm a little bit probably more outgoing and off the cuff, and he's a little bit more measured. And so I like messing with him.
I think you got that about right. He is a little bit more measured. Yes. Yeah. And yeah, no offense to Brian, but you are super outgoing with your, improv comedy background and being a comedian and doing a lot of public speaking. So yeah, that's a fair analysis right there.
Right. And he hasn't done those things, so I wouldn't expect him to be able to do that. But I have enough experience on stage of getting people out of their comfort zone that I like to do that to him a little bit. So, and he's good at pushing back on me on some dogma I might have. So I like that he challenges me. So it's not just like the Cory Brian Kumbaya Love Fest. I think a lot of times you can learn when there is discordance, when there is disagreement, and you are forced to confront information that might be contrary to what you're used to. So, and as a listener, I think that should give us more credibility because we are willing to challenge our beliefs. And it was challenging our original beliefs on how diabetes was treated that led us down this path of being able to find remission.
Challenging beliefs. I think you said that really well because I have heard some of your episodes where you say, well, these are the guidelines. I disagree with the guidelines. And you've talked about where people are on medication. They expect to take medication for the rest of their lives. But you say, no, you don't have to do that. There is another way. And just by challenging conventional medical guidelines, I think that perks up your listeners' ears. Like, hey, this guy has a different message.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's... And then I'll challenge my unconventional beliefs by saying that when I have someone whose sugar is 400, I give them insulin. Like, you have to treat that too. And so it's interesting because I find myself in this sort of middle ground where I have a lot of friends in the, we'll say, alternative lifestyle medication circles who are like, medication's never, ever, ever. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's really great. But when you have someone who's unwilling or unable to change their lifestyle habits, medication is necessary because there will be complications if you don't treat those things. And I enjoyed your episode on how to pronounce liraglutide because I still say liraglutide and I will take that to the grave. Even though I know it's wrong, I like to be a little bit unconventional. That class of medicines, the GLP-1s, I use them in the right people and they help a lot and it's okay. And I have people who would be like, those are the worst things ever. I'm like, you're not 400 pounds. Okay. Like that's the truth. And so I think the other thing you'll get from us in this episode is intellectual honesty, or at least from myself, of saying, here's my preference, but here's what the reality is. So let's find the right path. And that's what I talk about with my patients is you can go the lifestyle route, you can go the medicine route, we can mix it up. I'm here to help you choose your own adventure to get you to the health that you want.
Choose your own adventure. I love that. That's great. Well, I have an episode idea for you, and it has nothing to do with drug pronunciation, so I will let that rest. It actually has to do with Stello. I just heard about Stello recently, and are- do you know about Stello?
That's the over-the-counter continuous glucose monitor.
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
I used to test. Yeah.
I was just at the annual meeting of the Ohio Pharmacists Association in Columbus, Ohio, which I know you've been to a few years ago. We
Mm-hmm.
actually met in person there. And the Stello was something that I learned about. And of course, during the trade show, they had the rep for Dexcom there. And I believe that's one of their devices. And I was just amazed that you can now get those like over the counter. I thought they were still by prescription only. So I am just proposing to you that you do an episode on the Stello for maybe somebody who's pre-diabetic and just wants the information.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm a big proponent of continuous glucose monitors. I've in using them with my patients, the reps give us they'll give us samples, and I've experimented with them on myself just to, what does it feel like? How does it have on my arm? When do they fall off? And the answer is when I go through my door. I sweat in the sauna, I swim, I lift weights, and then I just bump through the door. And I warned my patients, and they actually, one the other day was like, I did the same thing you said not to do, and I hit the door. But the continuous glucose monitors, I think, here's where we get to evidence-based medicine versus gut-based medicine, because I don't think we have the evidence to prove that it will stop people from going from, like, say, pre-diabetes to diabetes. However, I have had so many patients who put these things on and are just like, oh, I get why you say to eat less rice. Or, oh, I eat oatmeal and it makes my sugar go high. I'm like, yeah, it can. So what can we do? Or they'll say, like, potatoes don't do it, but rice does. And that's great. Again, we have this crazy interpersonal variability. And then the order of operations of how you eat food can affect your carbs and sugars and how they affect. Your stress can do it. Your sleep can do it. And so, yeah, I think I'll I'll talk to Brian and we'll talk about Stello. Stello.
Stello. I
We'll do
love
an
it
episode
instead of
on that.
Stella. Yeah, thank you for accepting my suggestion for that episode. I just bought one for my son, and I'm excited to see if he'll keep it on, first
Hmm.
of all.
Sure.
And I don't know where the ideal spot to put it. So maybe you could talk about that in the episode as well. And hopefully it's someplace where he can't reach. Somebody suggested on his belt line, kind
Hmm.
of. So maybe he can't reach back there. Who knows? I'm just excited to see how much time he actually stays in a target range. You
Hmm.
know, I think I've heard that you're supposed to be in your target range for 70% of the day. Am I remembering this right?
Seems about right. I,
Yeah. Okay.
I just, yeah, for me, with a lot of my patients, we're going from all red to trying to get to some green. And so to me, it's less about a specific goal and more about trends and where are you going, which maybe I should be more strict with my numbers or whatever, but I'm just moving. To me, it's like, what are you moving from and what are you moving towards? And if you're at 65%, is that bad? If last week you were 25%, no, I'd say it's great. So what? And if you are a patient who was told you're at, go from 25 to 65% in range, but you're like, but you're not at goal, how's that gonna make you feel? You're gonna feel like terrible. So that's the perspective I take from it, is to acknowledge the wins and not get obsessed over perfection. But I'm an imperfect human, so here we are.
Well, I'm not perfect either. I would like to try one as well,
Yeah.
but my son first. We're going to experiment with that. He has autism and
Mhm.
he just doesn't understand when he's full. He wants to just eat and eat and eat. And I don't think the numbers will mean anything to him, but they sure will mean something to me.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to trying it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Oh, thanks. Thank you very much. Now, going back to podcasting, total change of topic here.
Sure.
What is your favorite thing about podcasting?
I think it's the creative process, and having a long form opportunity to talk about something that I really care about. I still work a traditional pharmacy job, and in that job, I do get to do diabetes management. I do get to do obesity management, which are my two passions kind of under the umbrella of overall metabolic health. but I get 20 minutes with a patient. I see them at most like every 4 weeks. And I have these same conversations 10 times a day. And I have to repeat it over and over and over again. But I record a podcast with you, with Brian, by myself now, and that's out there forever. And I could just send a patient to that podcast and say, listen to this. And I don't have to say it over and over and over again. Because I'll be honest, like this is, I think, how people get burnt out in their clinical work or their day-to-day work is these same issues, whether it's a clinical pharmacist doing diabetes, whether you're in retail pharmacy having the same conversations on the first of the year every year with the change in insurance. It gets old. And so here I get a chance to explore, be challenged, and have an impact, right? We went to pharmacy school to freaking help people. And I feel I can actually have that impact, which is empowering and fun. It can make this, make this world more fun.
Darn right. I like that you said that you get to say something into a podcast that you can then refer a patient to, because how many times do they forget what you said after they leave the room?
A lot, like an infuriatingly amount. And it's not their fault. We can only take in so much as humans. And it's not like I'm not trying. I'm not going to keep trying. But sometimes I spent 30 minutes with you. And they're like, so what am I doing? I'm like, but I have little kids, so I know what it's like to not have a message fall on ears that will act on it. So I should be more patient. But yeah, when you're on this time crunch and it's stressful and you're dealing with multiple plates spinning, to be like, I just talked for 20 minutes and I don't know if they're going to take that in is disheartening to then say, I'm going to go do it again now with the same person.
Yeah, it is so nice to be able to literally have a recording and tell somebody to press play. It's kind of like one of the benefits. It's one of the hashtags gifts of podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, that content lives forever. And of course, there's going to be a chance that what I said in 2025 is going to change in 2027 based on new evidence, and that's fine. We take this risk when we put ourselves out there, but how's that any different than what we learned in pharmacy school and then realizing 10 years later that actually that was a terrible idea and it was killing people? Just like every generation of healthcare professionals that we never learn that what we're doing might not be right, but someday we'll be humbled enough to realize that.
Can I give you some advice?
Please.
One of the things that I like to do is I've already done it during this episode. I said, as we record this in April 2025, and then I finished my statement. What you can do is you can say, with the current guidelines, as we're recording this on April 25th, 2025, is this. And so you've essentially made it what I call evergreen, or you've made it so that, for the listener, if something has changed and they know it, they will forgive you. And you can forgive yourself because on April 25th, 2025, that was the deal. And also in the show notes, I know you guys don't do too much with your show notes yet, but I would encourage you to put the big takeaways so that if somebody says, I don't have time to listen to your 18-minute podcast, Cory, just give me the top 3 points. You can put those top 3 points in the show notes and you can timestamp those too and say, this episode was published on April 25th, 2025. And again, if the guidelines have changed, you can just tell them, well, hey, that was back then and this is now. Thanks for letting me impart my wisdom upon you.
Of course, this is why you listen to smarter people than yourselves. This is you're the expert at this. I just put earbuds in and talk into a microphone about what I think I know, and you have the polish and experience to give us these notes. So, and as you're listening to this, listener, you're getting this in real time, as I am. So, this is fun. This is the fun part of it, is sharing. This goes back to our oral traditions, is sharing knowledge. We didn't always have the chance to write things down. So it's kind of fun being part of what my grandparents were part of, which was the radio generation. You listened to everything, and then it was all TV. And now we all listen to podcasts. It's just radio. We're back to where we were in the 1920s. It's great. So
I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. No, don't get me started on emojis, because that's basically hieroglyphics. But that's we're going way out of the main topic here, but that's just my opinion. So
I just about burst out laughing. Hieroglyphics. I had not thought of that. Awesome. Well, I know that you're an author as well. You've written 2 books. I have read both of them. I thought they were great. I listened to the audiobook version because that's just how I prefer to consume books. And I just wanted to tell you that when you create podcast episodes, you can repurpose that content and write a book someday, or you can repurpose it for blog posts, social media posts, email newsletters, etc. So by investing your time in this, Cory, you're actually helping your future self.
Well, thank you. It feels like feels like I'm investing in my 401k for my own personal growth and in brand. I love it. It's on auto direct deposit. So, yeah, and I appreciate you bringing the books up, because since I've written those two, I've actually half written a couple others, and I've really taken a step back and realized that, I've for those who are not familiar, I have a background in improv comedy. So I wrote a book about applying improv to healthcare called Permission to Care. I'm a dad, and I had this crazy idea for a humorous dad book. So I wrote, I Guess I'm a Dad Now. In 2024, I published that. And I had a couple other ideas for books. And this passion of metabolic health and diabetes, I just keep coming back to that. Like, I have this comedy side. It's been fun. I've talked about improv for healthcare and a lot of my public speaking, but I've just realized, like, the conversations and the passion and the thing that gets me all frothy comes back to our poor health as a culture, a country, a nation, a world, whatever you might want to call it. So I appreciate the feedback on repurposing this content. And I think that the next book needs to be bigger. I want it to be a bigger idea. Not to say that the ones I did weren't. I mean, parenting's a big idea. Healthcare is a big idea. But I think the next one, I'm going to be really careful about writing and publishing it. Because writing a book, publishing a book, and doing the audiobook takes a lot of time and effort and money. And I want to make sure that the next one that I write is going to be a large impact and help a lot of, not that the other books can't help people, but I want this next one to be big. And so I'm waiting to write another one, is what I'm saying. So I might repurpose those two half books into some fun blog posts that are unrelated to what I'm doing right now with Ryan.
Those two half books, they had nothing to do with diabetes remission, right?
No, they are
Okay.
It's a midlife crisis guide for millennials and how to be a sports parent. So very, very unrelated to diabetes, I would say.
Yes.
So they were more fun writing projects for my plane rides in the last couple of years.
Got it. Well, you may find that after a couple years of doing the Diabetes Remission Roadmap podcast, you may want to write a book about it, because things will happen because of your podcast. My podcast coach, Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting, always says that it takes about three years for something to happen because of your podcast. So in 3 years, Cory, I might have to ask you, like, how's your book coming? Because you might write a book about this.
That would be great. And the frustrating thing is I love writing, and I have to be very careful about how I spend my time because I have like 3 little kids, a part-time job, trying to run the household, coach Little League, and then have a podcast. And so, but I think this is where the next passion shall lie. But I don't have a time machine or a crystal ball. That's the one. So we'll see what 3 years brings, or about 2.5 years, given we've been out for about 6 months.
Right. What you really need is one of those Hermione Granger time turners from the Harry Potter series of books. Do you know what I'm talking about if I say a time turner?
I have never read Harry Potter, so no,
What?
I do not.
Are
But
you
I
like
can
philosophically against that series?
no, I just haven't never picked it up. So I don't know. If to all the Harry Potter fans angry at me right now, I don't dislike Harry Potter. I just have never read it, and I didn't read it. And here I am at 38 years old as we record this in April 2025. So
When your kids start reading books like that, the young adult series of books, you may find yourself reading it with them or something. So you're totally excused. The reason I bring up the time turner, though, is that it's a way that she added more hours to her day. So she, as a big nerd, could attend more classes at Hogwarts, which is the school of witchcraft and wizardry.
I would use that to read more books, quite honestly. So I would use that for nerdy purposes as well. Kudos to the time turner. I'll get on that.
Yeah, you need a time turner. There you go. All right. Back to things that you like about podcasting. What are you getting out of this podcast? Like, what's in it for you?
Well, I think, as I said selfishly before, it's an outlet for a lot of the knowledge I'd like to think I've accumulated over the last decade of practicing plus. It gives me a chance to hang out with my friend Brian. We're good friends. He lives in Ohio, I live in Arizona, yet we've been able to create a really awesome friendship from afar. And to build something together with a friend is really fun. And like, honestly, the idea of putting myself out of a job is great. Like, if I went to work one day and it's like, hey guys, diabetes is cured, I'd be like, hands in the air, wipe my hands, move on to the next challenge in life. But I'll say, like, I mean, selfishly within this, like, we're doing this podcast and we are in the process of creating a diabetes coaching course too. So there is something selfish behind it. But I think the goal here is to connect with our audience. And if our audience finds that we are trustworthy or knowledgeable and they feel that we can help them, we want to have something ready to go to actually help them other than like answering random DMs, right? We want to have a structured way of helping people reverse diabetes. And I think that's something we've seen with our practice is if you don't have a plan, our culture, our society, our food environment will beat you down and you will fail at what you're doing unless you have a good plan. And then often like having a coach. And this is something I've learned with public speaking coaches, writing coaches, like life is really complicated when you become a grown-up and no one tells you that. And I always thought the idea of like a life coach, that's crazy. Like you just do stuff. And I was like, well, this was in college when I was single and had no kids. I could just do stuff. And now I have like 3 kids and I can't just like do stuff. Like it took us 2 weeks to put up a smoke alarm in our new room. Like it was just sitting there. We didn't have the chance to do it because our kids are always needing us. So to have that hand to guide you through that process ultimately is what we want to be able to do. And if you get all the value from our episodes and you don't need our coaching, great. I don't care. I just want people to be healthy. And if people want to take that relationship to another level and get some more personalized care, we're going to have that ready to go soon as we record this in April of 2025.
That is becoming a recurring joke, and I love it.
It is, yeah, callbacks.
Nice. And when do you think this course might come out? 2025 or 2026?
Oh, it's going to be 2025. We have the content prepared. And if people reach out to us now in April of 2025, we are ready to coach. We don't have the website, like the sign up link, if you will, but we have the materials ready to go, and which probably doesn't inspire a lot of confidence, but there's a lot of technical pieces that have to go in place to do something well. But we already have a few clients right now. So if it makes you feel any better as you listen to this, they're like, "What are you up to, Cory and Brian?" We've already been coaching a few people, and so we're ready to go from the delivery of what the coaching is. It's the technical stuff that us pharmacists don't really get a lot of training in, or maybe don't like, that we're getting set in place.
I like that you are creating a coaching course because I think your audience is really going to enjoy working with you, like both of you. So I'm the plural you, right?
Well, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you're very welcome. And I love that you're kind of giving free samples here in your podcast. That's great. It's a great way to go.
Healthcare is expensive and complicated enough. And I have so many patients of mine who have come to me and put their diabetes in remission or come off multiple medications. And they're like, well, I watched this YouTube video from Dr. So-and-so or some other sources that I've referred them or have heard of. I was like, yeah, what a world we live in that you've been seeing a doctor and paying thousands of dollars for medicines for 20 years. And in a 15-minute YouTube video, you figured out more than in 20 years of failed healthcare. And so I think that's the democratization of information is great. And so if people are able to listen to us and improve, great. That's cool. Like we're here to serve. And we got different levels of servitude if we want to provide that. So, but yeah, and it's, as I said, like selfishly, it's fun to do. So I'm having fun providing the information and letting people learn and get feedback and bounce ideas off. And hopefully we'll talk about Stello soon, because that's another area of pharmacy and healthcare that I love talking about, or CGMs.
Thank you very much for talking about your upcoming course. I'm excited for you, and I can certainly refer people to you because that's something they can do probably self-paced, right? So once you guys, put out that course, I might have to have you both back, or maybe just Brian. I don't know. How close to the 5-episode jacket issue do you want to get here?
Whatever would work would be great. And he could come on here and do a great job of talking about what we're doing as well. As long as his kids aren't screaming in the house, because we've had them walk through the background of a couple episodes before. So I have the luxury of recording usually at like 4 a.m. when everyone's still asleep, hopefully asleep. So,
right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And your podcast is audio only, right? It is not video.
Correct. Yeah. You will only hear us talking.
Okay. Yeah. I've chosen the audio route as well. Some people say that the barrier to entry is a lot lower down here with audio only, and I tend to agree. That's just what I like to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If I'd have known, I wouldn't have put on such a fancy shirt. for all the people listening. My spring themed aqua shirt. It's a t-shirt, folks. It's not fancy. So.
And I'm wearing a scrub top, just in case anybody's wondering.
Perfect.
But I was hoping you might be wearing a Cubs shirt because I know that you are a baseball fan.
I am. I have a Cubs hat on at least. So
Yes.
on
Yes,
brand still.
Nice. Nice. All right, let's change the topic a little bit. Let's talk about challenges. What have you found to be the very hardest thing about podcasting so far?
Getting people to listen to your podcast and getting it out in the world and marketing it. I think I don't know the statistics. You probably know them better, but like everyone has a podcast now. They're very popular. So finding a way to reach people, getting it into their ears and marketing it. I think mostly too, because the way you're going to market, you could have email marketing, you could have social media marketing, you could have word of mouth marketing. I personally have a strong desire to remain off of social media as much as possible. And it's pretty much reflected in my book sales, which is fine. I'm at peace with that. But Brian's done a great job of creating an Instagram for us. And I'll share the episodes in my email newsletter, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, etc. And so, yeah, it's building the audience. And fortunately, I think both of us know that this is a long game, that you just don't become an overnight sizzle sensation. That's the exception, not the rule. And if we keep putting out solid information with a message that resonates, we'll grow. And we're okay with a leisurely pace of growth with the podcast. And so the hardest part is marketing and then patience, because we have Insta world right now in 2025. Everything's instant. So, but success is not. And if it is instant, it probably will not be sustained. And I'd rather have a slow, long, fun build of doing quality versus trying to burn ourselves out. So doing that and balancing all the other plates of life are hard. But we make time for what's important, and this to us is important. So we've made the time to record the episodes and market them and build our course, and we'll just keep moving forward. I think that's what our message to our patients is too, is you're not going to have a perfect path on the road to remission. There will be setbacks, there will be challenges, and we're living those with our podcast and our course. So we're there with you, and we can empathize and feel the pain along the way, so to speak.
You will grow. It does take time, though. When I first started my podcast, I had no idea how to advertise it. Once I started publishing, social media posts, then it started to grow, word of mouth, getting on other people's podcasts. And now that I have an email signature with my podcast in it, there's just all these ways that we can take things that we use every single day and repurpose it or add something to do with our podcast to it. So you're on the right track, sir. Thank you for sharing that advertising is a challenge for you.
Yeah.
Any other challenges that you want to talk about?
Not really. I know, very yes and of me as an improviser. Anything else? Nope. But I think that it hasn't been as challenging because it's fun. It's that nice kind of meshing of expertise, passion, relationship too, right? Brian and I have a great relationship. So we have strong back and forth with each other. We check each other when it's appropriate. We don't take anything personally. My ego's about this big and I'm holding up my fingers. It's tiny, little old ego. So we're here to serve the purpose of what our mission is. And sometimes that means Cory's idea doesn't get used or Brian's idea doesn't get used. That's okay. I don't care. I just want to succeed because success would mean helping a lot of freaking people. So at least I've expounded upon my no answer by saying why it's no.
All right. Got it. And at this time, I kind of want to start wrapping up, but I have like 3 questions left. Do you have time for the last few questions?
I do.
All right. Super. Cory, people think about starting podcasts all the time, especially pharmacists. So what advice do you have for pharmacists that want to start podcasts?
Think of an idea, make sure you like the idea, and just start doing it. And don't overthink it, because pharmacists we are perfectionists. And Brian and I, this is a challenge. Maybe it's a challenge. We'll loop it back to the last question. I'll say we, but let's be honest, mostly Brian. But sometimes me get caught in this has to be perfect, or this is what we get caught in minutia. Don't get caught in your minutia. Have an idea, start, and accept that your first few episodes, when you listen in 2 years, will sound terrible. That's okay. Just accept that. And it's hard because we're used to like having to be perfect. And use this as an opportunity to be imperfect. And when you're imperfect and trying things, you'll grow. So, and be kind to you when you listen to your first episode, when you listen to it in 2 years.
That's good advice. Yes, looking back, your first episode will kind of suck when you listen to the playback in 2 years. Yeah, absolutely. I have had that experience. When I reached episode 300, I put a clip from episode 1 into that episode, and I was just cringe,
Yeah.
total cringe.
It's like looking at your middle school yearbook pictures, right? It's meant to be bad. Just love yourself through it.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, that's funny. All right. Thank you for that advice for pharmacist podcasters to be. And I guess next we'll go to what surprised you most about starting a podcast?
How easy it was once you get going. If you're talking about something you care about and you know about, it's easy. It's just like you're talking to someone in the break room, or you're talking to a patient, or you're talking to a friend about what you do. And I think that's like a piece of advice, is to lean into what you know, and it'll be pretty easy. And then the hard part would probably be the technical stuff of like editing, and if you want to edit, and the music and the artwork. That's why I let Brian handle that. We lean into
I was wondering who did your editing,
zero.
you or Brian?
I do zero of it. I hate that stuff, and he enjoys it. So maybe find someone, if you want to do a partner podcast, someone who is a compliments you in what you do and do not like to do.
That is great advice. Yes. Don't do things that you don't like to do.
Yeah, because then you won't do it and it'll stop.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes a barrier to producing episodes. Yes. I like that you said that it's easy once you get started, because if you're really passionate about it, the words are just going to flow.
Mm-hmm.
Last question for you, Cory. Anything coming up that you'd like to promote here in 2025?
I think the biggest thing is the podcast itself, the Diabetes Remission Roadmap, and then we'll be having a course soon to follow that. And so I believe that we provided some links to our Instagram, Facebook pages, and the link to the actual podcast. So as these things launch, that's the greatest way to know about it. If you want to follow myself and or Brian on LinkedIn, I think that's a great way to keep in touch with us as well. And once that thing's live, we'll be promoting it there too. And if you are listening to this and you have a specific type 2 diabetes question you want us to answer, send it to me directly on LinkedIn, or if you go to my website, coryjenks.com, you can contact me through there. You can follow me on all the other social media stuff. I just don't post a ton on it. So I think the best value that I can provide to people probably is through the podcast and my books, versus like silly cat videos on Instagram. So, but that's just where I'm at in life right now. I don't want to spend my time on there. So that's why Brian does our socials as well, because he's a great partner in crime in this.
Yeah, you do have a great partner. If he likes to do the things that you do not necessarily have time for or are passionate about, that's where you can just kind of distribute the burdens.
Yeah, I do a lot of the writing in the background. So since I have the more extensive writing background, that's where I live, and he lives in some of the other stuff. So we help with all the other stuff too. But anyways, yeah. Listeners, reach out. I like interacting with people from podcasts. That's how I became friends with Brian, actually. He heard me on a different podcast, and we became friends because he heard me and sent me a message on LinkedIn. So maybe you listening too can become one of my best friends someday. I don't know.
That's great. Which podcast were you on that he heard you on?
The Business of Pharmacy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in February of 2020. I was on there like, I'm out there speaking. It's going to be a great year. Got a lot of momentum. Like 3 weeks later, I was like, I take back everything.
Yeah, that was a month before the pandemic descended upon the United States. Dang it. Thank you for sharing the things that you would like to promote. Anything else you'd like to say as we wrap this up?
Boy, I've talked a lot. I don't think I have anything more to add. You've let me talk so much. I think if there's anything unsaid, it cannot be that important. So I appreciate you sharing your platform with me, and or Brian, if he could have been here today.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for coming back to the Pharmacist Voice podcast. Take care, Cory.
You too. Bye.
Thanks again to Dr. Cory Jenks for being my guest on episode 334 of the Pharmacist Voice podcast. I enjoyed hearing all of that behind the scenes information about the Diabetes Remission Roadmap podcast. What's it about? Why'd they start it? Who's their audience? What do they get out of having a podcast? Audience feedback and how they've used that to make an episode. Awesome. That is serving your audience well when you take that feedback and give them the episode they want. I love that. We heard why Brian and Cory chose that co-host format. which co host edits the show. I wasn't sure which one it was, but it is Brian. Cory gave some advice for future podcasters, and there was a whole lot more in that episode. I loved it. I hope you feel inspired to start your own podcast, be a podcast guest, or just use your voice in general. Just as a follow up, I just want to mention again that I am definitely looking forward to their upcoming Stello episode, should they choose to publish it. And I'd also love to hear more about their online course once it comes out. For now, I'll just keep listening to their podcast. As we wrap this episode up, I got to put a plug in for my business. I help pharmacists start podcasts. It's part of my business, The Pharmacist's Voice. So if you need help starting your podcast, please reach out. I love to work with clients one-on-one. If you would like to work with me one-on-one, message me through the contact form on my website, which is thepharmacistvoice.com. And I do have a couple of other options. If you prefer a self paced online course, I do have a self paced online course where I show you behind the scenes of my podcast to help you start yours. If you would like to check that out, it is $249 US. And that website for that is kimnewlove.com/podcasting. I also have a book about podcasting available on Amazon.com. You can buy the print version, the ebook, or the audiobook. The title is Pharmacist Podcaster, a podcast planning guide for pharmacy professionals. There are worksheets in all the versions of the book, print, ebook, and audiobook, and those worksheets will help you plan your podcast. You can even download those worksheets in the audiobook. There is a downloadable PDF. So check out the show notes if you are interested in the book. Buy it today on Amazon and then get started podcasting. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening to the Pharmacist's Voice podcast, episode 334. The show notes are on thepharmacistvoice.com. Click the podcast tab and then pick episode 334. In the show notes, you will find lots of links as always, but definitely check out the links to Cory and Brian on LinkedIn, a link to their podcast on Spotify, their podcast's Facebook and Instagram links, my book about podcasting, and more. Everything you need is on thepharmacistvoice.com. Check out those links today. If you know someone who might like this episode or they want to start a podcast, please share this episode with them. And if you like this podcast, subscribe to or follow the Pharmacist's Voice podcast on your favorite podcast player and YouTube to get each new episode right when it comes out. We've got a whole lot more coming up here in 2025. Thanks for listening today. I'll talk to you next week.